to inspire, to motivate, to educate, to help. It's because we have been through it. Hopefully, you're not going through something we've been through, but hopefully you're going through your own thing that's going to make you great, and you're handling it with grace.
When you get the thing you love most taken from you, ripped from you, you have a new resolve. I just got the chills. You have a new appreciation. Sometimes you don't know what you have until you lose it.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another very special, as always, episode of Next Level University, where we teach you how to level up your life, your love, your health, and your wealth. We hope you enjoyed our latest episode, which was from our Q&A portion of our Meetup Monday last week. Today, for episode number 662, what our life used to be like versus what our life is now, and the lessons you can take away. It's a long title that I just made up off the top of my head.
Strong work. So you wanted to do this episode.
Yes.
Why, and what is it about?
I feel like when we did the echo chamber episode, we didn't call it the echo chamber, but basically how normal is your normal? I think that we forget what our normal used to be like.
For sure.
And I think of when you get on the phone with somebody you've never talked to before, you understand very clearly like what their normal is. Maybe they don't have any set routine, they don't manage their calendar, whatever. I remember what that was like, and I think I want to make sure that we're not doing a disservice to the listeners if they see where we are today and assume like, oh, I could never do that, or I'm so far away, when it's like 5 years ago, I didn't even have a calendar.
Right.
4 years ago, 3 years ago probably, I didn't even have a calendar.
Right.
So I just think it's important to give perspective, give a little bit of connection, and give the understanding of like a lot can happen in a few years.
So what did your life used to be like?
I always talk about, the high level is I did what I felt like I wanted to do, mostly pleasure-based, based on like, what am I going to do tonight kind of deal. Like, what am I going to do on the weekend? My life used to be this. In my mid-20s, when I had that job that I always talk about, it was Monday through Friday, the week was gone completely. I was in a hotel room 4 hours away, so like there was nothing to do. Genuinely, like nothing. We'd watch TV, or we'd play PlayStation in the hotel room after work. I'd still go to the gym. That's always been a good habit. But like I remember we would go out on like...
You brought your PlayStation on the road?
Yeah.
It's cool.
Baller move.
Nice.
No, shout out to Ray. Ray used to bring his. Ray. And like on Thursday nights...
What'd you guys play?
We played Madden.
Nice.
Played a little bit of COD. Call of Duty, for those who don't know what that is. That's pretty much it, I think. Okay. We didn't play a ton. We just watched whatever was on TV. We'd go to the casino. We'd go out drinking. Like, we used to go out at, like, Thursdays. We'd just go get hammered because we work second shift.
From this new awareness, what was that? Why do you think you were doing that? What was your future going to be like if you stayed doing that? Yeah, go ahead.
I feel like I was so unhappy. I disliked my job. I didn't realize how out of alignment my job was with me. And again, my job wasn't bad. Like, it's not like I worked for bad people or any of that. It wasn't that. It was like my number one core human need is certainty. My job was filled with uncertainty. I never knew what time I was starting. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know where I was working next week. Sometimes I get a text on Sunday like, hey, you're in Jersey this week. Hey, you're in Pennsylvania this week. Like 2 nights before. Go to the shop, pack your van, you're leaving Sunday night. Cool. Like, and then just plug it into the GPS where we're going to the hotel. We go to the hotel, and then I'm the boss. So like I have to go to the school and connect with the principal, to connect with the head custodian, to figure out what we're allowed to do, what we're not allowed to do. Can we use these chemicals in the building? Like, so it was just like all uncertainty all the time. So I went from being afraid to drive in Boston to driving anywhere and everywhere, and it didn't bother me ever. Like, that's why I always drive. Like, I drove us to Canada 10 hours straight. I think we stopped like once for McDonald's. But I like driving because it's ingrained in me now. But I just think like quality time is something I valued. I didn't have any of that. Luckily, I had some people that I worked with that I liked. But like, I didn't always. Sometimes I worked with people I didn't enjoy working with. So there was no quality time. Friends was like once on the weekend. You know, I'd drive like I told you this, I'd drive 5 hours home and I'd have my friends at my house waiting for me with pizza. Like I just gave them a key. It's just, do whatever you want. Like you want to go smoke weed and drink, like while I'm on my way home. I'll be home at like midnight. And they'd be there and we'd get high and we played NBA and we'd eat pizza and go to the bar or get up early the next day and, well, not early, get up the next day, go to the gym, do it again kind of deal. So that, I think it was just pleasure. It was pleasure. And I think it's important to talk about that because you only kind of see the shining example. Like, I'll still have a whiskey every once in a while. I'll have a beer with Taryn on the porch. I'm not getting hammered. Like, that's not really something I do anymore. Mm-hmm. But I think people tend to only show the highlights. And I don't think... I think it's important to see where we were before this.
Yeah. It's wild.
Right? What was your day-to-day?
What part of my life? And again, for the listeners, if this appears to be about us, I think what we're trying to do here is pull back the curtain on what our life used to be like before self-improvement, before personal development, before the podcast. Yeah. Not so that, basically so that you understand that where you are isn't forever unless you want it to be. And
we're not saying that we are where we want to be either. We're not where we actually want to be. So it's not, it's definitely not us pumping our own tires. I feel like I look on social media and I look on social media and I look on social media and these people say like, oh, I remember when I was struggling and this was happening and this was happening. And it's like, but you didn't talk about it then. You talked about it like 15 years later when that's not a worry anymore.
I know.
And I think one thing that I'm happy that we've done is we try to talk about it while we're going through it. Mm-hmm. Identity crisis, growing pains number 7, this. We try to talk about healed wounds, not open wounds, but before they're distant memories where we can't actually understand what they were.
Yeah.
And even this might be a little too late. Not too late, but long overdue to do something like this.
So which part of life
not even in the shot.
Do you want me to try to explain or articulate? What did you envision for this episode in terms of like, because I'm 32. You're 31.
Yeah.
There's a lot of chapters.
You used to say, you've told the story a couple times on this show about you driving to Connecticut in a winter and the potholes were terrible and you pulled over and punched your ceiling and had a breakdown. What was that? What was Alan doing that time in his point? Oh my God, in that point of your life. Almost like I'm a podcast.
Almost. So, I'm just joking.
No, trust me, you're good.
So I was working for Cognex.
Any chance I can see that timer? Or?
Yeah, here you go. Appreciate you, brother.
I don't have to have it.
I just dropped the timer for Kevin.
You got nervous.
I was working for a company called Cognex, as the listeners know, and I wasn't fully optimizing for fulfillment either. I was optimized for what I thought I wanted, and I didn't realize that fulfillment is actually the most important thing, and so I wasn't very fulfilled in hindsight. But I didn't know that at the time. Yeah. At the time, I didn't know that fulfillment was supposed to be the goal.
Yeah.
It was kind of like, it's weird to even think about.
That's what I'm saying. I didn't know what fulfillment was until I was like 27.
It's wild.
26.
I don't know if I did either. I didn't ask myself, like, am I fulfilled? I think I asked myself, am I happy? And I think I knew the answer was no, but I didn't know why. So I'm driving around all of Western New England. So I was an inside sales rep in the office. Headquarters was in Natick, Massachusetts. And then I got promoted to outside sales engineer. And I traveled all over the Western New England. So Connecticut was my main territory, Vermont, and Western Mass. And like you, I was on the road. It's supposed to be 5 days out of the week. Supposed to be. I would try to take nearly. I would try to take a back office day at least once a week.
Call of Duty or Halo or what was it?
It depends. No, but honestly, I would travel to all these manufacturing facilities all over Connecticut. And I mean, Connecticut roads.
Not ideal. And I remember
in the winter in particular, I didn't have the nicest car. After my car accident at 26, I was starting to get into personal development, but it was a slow start. I mean, I was just building momentum. I remember I was listening to Money Master the Game, and I was still working for Cognex, and I was still traveling to all these customer sites. I mean, a bunch of different customers we had. We had Frito-Lay, and I remember there was GE up in Vermont. That was a actually beautiful drive up in the mountains. But I would just spend a lot of time in the car,
Yeah.
and I would listen to audiobooks. And it's almost like the life that I was preparing for was different than the life I was living. And in a weird way, I think we're all always there. So Kevin mentioned earlier that, like, we're not where we want to be yet either. I think that life is always these three things simultaneously. I think it's who you were, who you currently are, and who you're aspiring to be all at once. And I think that after my car accident at 26, I was still an outside sales engineer, but I was a different version of that. And so I was not who I used to be before the car accident. I was changed, transformed. But I was also not who I aspired to be yet. And so I was learning all these things. I remember I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
What was the first book you ever read? Personal development book?
How Successful People Think by John Maxwell. And this was long before my car accident. This was way, way, way back. And I think that I was in Barnes & Noble, and Mark worked there. And he's like, you would really like John Maxwell. You would really like this book. It's called How Successful People Think. Super small book, like really simple. And it's fascinating because I still have it on my shelf, and I think about that. Because I bought the book, I think, to portray that I wanted to look like successful. Not necessarily because I really wanted to learn it.
I think that it was similar for me.
It's weird to think about, right?
I told you this.
Yeah.
I'm not proud of this. I used to listen to whatever it was. The first book I ever listened to was Rich Dad Poor Dad, for sure. I used to listen to that while playing like MLB, the show, just multitasking. I just listen to it and play video games. Like that's how I started. That's how I started personal development.
It's wild.
That's how I started it. And like, again, I don't know. I think people think when they learn something new, everything changes. And it's like one tiny little thing might change a little bit. But what does change is your potential.
Your trajectory.
Yeah. The first domino is like a little bit bigger. It's just a little bit bigger. And then it can knock over a little bit bigger domino that can knock over a little bit bigger. But that's the thing. We interviewed Evan Carmichael. We removed the shine. We got invited up to interview him in Toronto at his dance salsa studio, which is amazing. And he said, I like the fact that you guys wanted to pull back the curtain on success. That's what I want to do with this episode. I didn't just start listening to books. I started listening to books while playing video games.
Yeah.
Straight up.
It's interesting because back then, and I'll tell this story as well, I was traveling all over and I was really, really unhappy. And I had one of our mutual friends' old high school car. It was a Pontiac Grand Prix. And the car wasn't very good. I mean, it was older. It was much older. I think it was a 2001 or something like that. And I was driving so much that it was like kind of a crappy car to be driving around in. And I remember it was either 2015 or 2016. It had to be 2016 because it was after my car accident because the Passat got smashed. And it was a horrible winter. And I remember driving. It's almost like, you remember how you tell the story of after you started the podcast, you disliked your job? That's what happened to me too. After my car accident, I was no longer invested in that future.
Yeah, it realigns you.
It realigned me to now personal development is my thing that I want to go all in on. So now it's almost like I'm doing this, but I'm not really this. I'm not trying to become this anymore. And so everything that I tolerated before suddenly became intolerable.
Same.
I remember there was this one time I was following my boss to a meeting because there was a sales engineer, then there was engineers that come on the road with you that are automation engineers. Then there was a district sales manager who had many sales engineers under him, and then there was a regional sales manager, and then there was a VP of sales for all of the Americas. And so my boss's boss and I got along really well. Then my boss would come on the road with me to these different bigger customers. And I remember one time he was driving a Hyundai and I was driving the Pontiac, and I kept getting lost. You've traveled a ton. It's like traveling is a pain in the ass.
It's way easier now than it's ever been because of Waze. Back then, there was no Waze. It was Google Maps, and if you had unlimited data.
I know.
If you didn't have unlimited data, you were running a map.
I know.
And again, maybe not that. I mean, that was, 2015? So
yeah,
maybe
so
Waze,
I still had a good GPS.
When I was driving back in the day, it wasn't that way. I had to use a map or like a Garmin.
Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah.
But like it was frustrating because it's midday
Yeah.
and there's traffic and there's potholes and the roads are shitty in Connecticut. It was really pretty miserable. And again, it is what it is. We're getting paid. You got to do a job. I get it. But I remember I was really late to this one meeting because I got lost or I took the wrong exit. Dude, that was something that I did sometimes because I'd be listening to my book.
Still do.
I still do. I would listen to my book and I'll miss the exit, be like, oh no. But I learned that great nugget on Money Master the Game though. And I was late and I remember pulling over one time just being like so unhappy and I was breaking down and I was crying. And I was so pissed and so frustrated. I just started punching my ceiling. And I was so sick and fucking tired of living a life that I didn't like.
Yeah.
And after that, dude, that was when I mentally was done.
Yeah.
I remembered that moment. Like, I am done with this job. I'm never going to do this again. And I still, of course, for like another month, just stayed on. And then I sent an email to my boss. I CC'd everybody. I said, I'm out. I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much, but I'm done. And that was it. That was it, man. After that, I was all in on my own thing. But it's wild because, remember, when the pain is great enough, you will change. And sometimes it takes the pain to being great enough. I mean, that's one principle that I'll bring again and again and again and again is, unfortunately, human beings, I think it's important to aspire to be proactive. I do. I think it's important to aspire to be proactive. But let's be real. Like, a lot of times human beings are fairly reactive. Mm. Like, sometimes you don't value money as much as you should until you run out of money. It's just an interesting thing. And so we say that if you've never gotten to F no, you'll never get to F yes. Yeah. And, whether it's your suicidal moment or my car accident or me punching the ceiling, that's one thing that I will say. I think that if I look back at and reread the book of my life, I have always been someone who usually stretched the rubber band enough to make change. Whereas I think a lot of people sit in that comfort zone of like Monday sucks, but it's not bad enough to quit. And then by Friday it's okay. And then rinse and repeat. Whereas for me, I think it's an advantage. I'll push the limits of things so much that I get to the guardrail quicker. Mm. And that, has been reckless at times. Don't get me wrong. But like, why did I quit drinking? Let's be real. Because I got to the point where I got so drunk one time that I was unkind to my girlfriend, and I saw that, and I was like, oh my God, like, I can't do that. I don't want to be that. But other people who only have 2 or 3 beers, they're never going to get to the point where it's a big enough problem to actually quit. And I know that's a hard concept to understand, but it's almost like, you remember when Tom Brady got injured in 2008? Mm. So the 2007 season was 19 wins in a row, and with an asterisk because of the thing. But like 2008, he tore his ACL. After that, he realized how much he loved football, and he stopped taking football for granted. And he talks about this in his book. Dude, he's gotten 7 Super Bowls since then. I bet you if he didn't tear his ACL, and the 2008 season, I don't know if you saw that game. I'm a Patriots fan.
I was there.
You were
I think I was
at
actually at the game.
Okay. Do you remember how like they were crushing it? This was after the 2007 Super Bowl season where they crushed everybody, 19 wins in a row. Or they lost the Super Bowl to the Giants, right? Okay, which was devastating. But then the next season, they were hammering this team. This was like the first season game where they were just crushing it. And then Tom Brady tore his ACL. He talks about it in his book, or I forget where I heard this. I think it was in his book, The TB12 Method. But he talks about how after that, he like reevaluated how much he loved football. Why? Because he can't play. When you get the thing you love most taken from you, ripped from you, you have a new resolve. I just got the chills. You have a new appreciation. Sometimes you don't know what you have until you lose it. And I'm telling you, when you lose and you learn how to lose, you'll get a new standard. Whereas most people who are in that lukewarm middle, they never take a lot of risk, but they never really stretch the rubber band. They're not going to lose. But that never losing keeps you in that weird little comfort zone. Whereas like, dude, I've been so broke before that I'm not going to take money for granted. Dude, when I was a kid, when my stepdad was around, from when I was 3 years old all the way to when I was 14 years old, my stepdad had a good job. And we were, I don't want to say like, we weren't wealthy, but we were well off. We were doing okay. For our small town that we grew up in, Kev, we were on the higher end.
Yeah.
upper middle class, mid-middle class. When my stepdad left, I got free lunch. I got discount lunch. I remember that was embarrassing. I was like embarrassed because of how little money we had. And dude, I never took money for granted again. I mean, I used to get an Xbox early for Christmas, Dreamcast. My buddy Kiki, who I grew up with, used to say, dude, you're rich. And I'm like, no, I'm not. What are you talking about? He's like, you're rich. Because we grew up on a lake, blah, blah, blah. We were well off. We had a yacht. We had an actual yacht, Kevin. A customized yacht was being built in our family. And when my mom and stepdad split up, we bought the home, kept the home and the dog, and he got the yacht. That was the deal we made. After that, man, I went from like well off, my neighbors saying, dude, you're rich, to like the most poor. Like, I don't know how we're going to survive. My mom had a lunch lady's income. And if I didn't have that happen, I'm telling you, man, I didn't mean to be this way, but I was just a kid. I was a little spoiled. I don't think I had perspective. The 90s were already very much, in this country, everyone was really flourishing. I mean, 30% year over year, if you look at the stock market, like that means you double your money every other year, every 2.5 years. Like it was, dude, when Bill Clinton was in office, everyone was crushing it. Real talk. The 90s were like flourish. Like that's the decade for the economy. And then the 2000s were brutal. Like it's called the lost decade is what the 2000s are. From 2001 to 2010 was like not good for the global economy. Anyways, blah, blah, blah. When I was a kid, I didn't understand, man. I learned through adversity what being poor was like. I learned through adversity what it was like to not be able to. I mean, we went on ski trips, and we had boats and fishing and deep sea and Block Island and rich friends and blah, blah, blah. When my stepdad left, I don't want to say nothing, but we scrapped. We absolutely scrapped. I mean, I got literally financial aid, luckily, and scholarships and free lunch. I mean, how poor do you have to be to get free lunch?
It's definitely a struggle. It's definitely a struggle. But again, like you said, I think that you need that.
Yeah.
I think you need that. Dave Meltzer says that of like, if you show me the son or daughter of a rich family that like went on to great things. And again, that's nothing against those people. It's just the necessity isn't there.
I know.
The necessity isn't there. When I look back on all those other times of like, dude, I remember getting
you grew
up
poor too. Let's be real.
I don't know. Like definitely didn't have money. We definitely didn't have money, but my mom was really good at making it known, or making me not know that we didn't have money.
Yeah.
Like I always had the nicest baseball bat on the team, but it was like my grandmother saying like, I don't know how we're going to pay rent this month, like $1,000 rent. So that definitely jeffed me for sure. Cause then it was just like scarcity. What do I do about this? I think that's probably one of the reasons I went so hard at my job, honestly. Cause it was like, if I can be the breadwinner in whatever family I'm in, I'm going to be fine.
Yeah, what you thought was your biggest problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
And honestly, same with me. I came back from LA and made a ton of money to try to. My family was in trouble financially, and I paid off $84,000 of debt in 1 year.
Right.
That's one of the things that drove us.
But I think I forget about like so many. Dude, okay, my family moved to a 2-bedroom. I think I was probably, I don't know. Did I have that job? Yeah, I had that job. I was probably 24, and I hadn't had my own place yet. So my family moved. I was living with my girlfriend at the time. We broke up. I had to move in with a family friend. Like, I moved in with, he used to be a friend of mine. We didn't spend time anymore. But I was friends with his sister, like really good friends. And she said, yeah, you can come live like with my family. I literally lived in her room. Like, because she had a house. I lived in her room for 6 months. Well, I just like was in between places to live. It's not that I didn't have the money to get a place, but like I was never home. So I was literally living out of a suitcase in my childhood sister's room for like 6 months. Well, I stacked money. Then I went and moved to Methuen. Nothing against Methuen, but like I lived in this terrible complex. It was brutal. I hated it. I absolutely hated it. It was disgusting and loud, and it was just terrible. I hated it. Moved to Boston with my girlfriend at the time. It's like I forget that stuff. I forget that.
Same.
Living in New Hampshire by myself, like $1,400 a month payment $400 a month car payment, another probably $500 or $600. Like I was doing like $3,000 a month in bills, like by myself. Didn't know how I was going to pay. Just lonely as hell. Like I think I forget that. The goal in this, like Alan said, it's not to talk about us, but I want you to remember like what you see is all of that stuff because of all of that stuff. And that's why it's so important for us to work on our characters, to work on our communication, to inspire, to motivate, to educate, to help. It's because we have been through it. Hopefully, you're not going through something we've been through, but hopefully you're going through your own thing that's going to make you great, and you're handling it with grace, and maybe we can shed some light on what it is. Maybe you are going through exactly what we went through. If so, we want to guide you, right? But I just think it's important to give context that, like, look, I don't want to lose sight of that. It's important to me that you and I don't lose sight of those things when we're on stages, right? Like, I don't want people to just say, like, oh, I can never do that. It's because we can, you can.
100%.
You dig?
I do, and I know we got to go
very quickly here.
Very last thing I would say, I just want to try to give the listeners a golden nugget from this. This is not where we started. This is not where we started. And in terms of a statistical norm of what is normal for a childhood, I would say that we're on the lower end in terms of what we grew up in. Like, silver spoon is non-existent for us, genuinely, and in more ways than I can publicly articulate. But we made something of it, and everyone can do that. I just think about that all the time. Like, one of the reasons we're so hardworking is because we know what it's like to have nothing.
Yeah.
And whatever it is, if you're out there and you feel lackadaisical and you feel like you're super comfortable and you feel like you haven't had that much adversity, like, figure out how to. You're not gonna be hardworking without any adversity. You gotta be proactive about that, and that's it. Is just your life will become what you make of it. I remember you did a Facebook video way long ago.
Back in the day, before it was cool.
Before it was cool, I remember seeing it, and I agreed. You said you don't deserve to be happy unless you are willing to work for it and earn it. I agree with that statement, even though it's hardcore.
You don't get what you deserve, you get what you work for. Or people think you deserve certain things. It's like you deserve what you work for.
Yeah, there you go.
That's what it is at the end of the day. And it is hardcore.
It's true.
But I can also tell you that I used to think I deserved a certain level of happiness and joy and fulfillment, and it's something that you have to earn through growth and contribution. Ladies and gentlemen, we love you. We appreciate you. As I have mentioned in the past few episodes, our first Next Level University online training course is about to be live. The worksheets are being done as we speak. What it really takes to get to the next level: $47, 30-day money-back guarantee. We want you guys to get to the next level, and we want to make sure that we are adding value. So if you don't get value from it, just let us know, and we will literally give you your money back.
Also, come into Next Level Nation. It's in the show notes. It's a private Facebook group where you can be yourself, and you'll be celebrated. Join us there.
We love you. We appreciate you. And as always, we do not have fans. We have family. We will talk to you tomorrow, since we do 7 episodes a week now.
Talk to you soon.
Bye.